Hello and welcome friends. In this particular module, we wish to discuss about the transportation and routing of the vehicles aspects as far as municipal solid waste management is concerned. We'll deal with means of solid waste transportation, present Indian scenario and measures to improve, guidelines for collection of route layout, design of collection routes based on layout of the area to be served, strengths and weaknesses of other approaches. As you learn the content, you will be able to state pros and cons of various transportation modes, state typical Indian scenario and the steps to improve the same, and design the solid waste collection layout. In last three presentations, firstly we discussed about general considerations as far as collection is concerned. Then we thought of the stationary container system and hauled container system for the collection. So now, this point onwards, the waste could be hauled by making use of either stationary container system or hauled container system. Now, we wish to have that particular waste collected at that particular secondary storage, and there could be number of such collection points for a given layout of the region. One can follow lot many alternatives in order to have that particular bins approached and collected. While doing so, the first and foremost thing that we have to ensure is collection of that particular waste at regular intervals in order to maintain hygienic conditions in that particular region. As I mentioned earlier, this collection may occur haphazardly and may attract some undue costs towards collection as well as even the collection related other allied factors. We must keep into account that this collection and transportation element is costliest element as far as solid waste management is concerned. It could consume 60 to 80% of the total cost associated with the activity of solid waste management. Hence, this collection is expected to reinforce the collection elements for its forward journey towards the destination point, which could be transfer and transport, disposal, as well as even the processing facility. Hence, we wish to have this system to be very effective as well as cost effective. In addition, we must see that this particular collection system should synchronize with the system of the waste that is adopted in order to store the waste at that particular point. Even we wish to have that particular system maintainable. As we consider this particular transportation of the waste for a particular region, after its collection, we can go for this motor vehicle transport, road transport, water transport, or pneumatic and hydraulic transportation. This system could be convenient depending on the topography as well as the requirement for that particular region. As we consider this as an individual means for the transportation, the motor vehicle transport is quite convenient, but if we use certain open top containers, they may lead to the littering of the waste. As well, it has to face the traffic congestion. Even we can adopt that particular motor vehicle transport compatible with the nature of the waste. Say for example, if we are dealing with some sludge which is generated, say, at some treatment plant, then we can make use of vacuum trucks in order to have that liquid and semi-solid waste transported. If we wish to have the bulk of solid waste to be transported at some, say, facilities established at remote locations, we can think of the railroad transportation as most beneficial option. If the area under consideration has got the waterways, then one can think of this particular water transport. This system is quite useful while dealing with the large and heavy sized waste. Also, we can think of certain containerized waste which could be hazardous waste. As compared to railroad as well as this particular motor vehicle and even this particular pneumatic and hydraulic transport, the waterways transport is quite cheaper option. Sometimes for a particular building, for a particular region, if the waste is of uniform nature, if it is light in weight, and if it is transportable through certain pneumatic and hydraulic means, one can have the waste conveyed through the conduits by using pneumatic and hydraulic hoses. However, as we are working on certain micro concept of the collection which is valid for a particular region, we can think of road transportation to be most convenient option. While having this particular option, still we can think of lot many factors. Say for example, objective of transportation. So if that particular waste is in hazardous nature, And if we wish to have that transported at some longer distance, we would prefer certain containerized options. Also, as we think of the destination, say for example certain processing facility, certain transfer station, so at that place what kind of unloading mechanism is available? At transfer station, that open trailers could be convenient because some pickup unloading mechanism is possible. So some cranes could be facilitating that kind of unloading. However, if we think of certain disposal site, so at that time such kind of arm roll garbage truck which can hoist as well as even the tilt the containers in order to download that particular waste, unload that particular waste would be convenient. While doing so, we also must take into account the nature and volume of that particular solid waste. Say for example, if we are going for bulk of the waste, we can have such ro-ro facilities or on-frame facilities. Even we can have the truck bodily transported through the railway lines. Whatever be the option that we could be going for, we must also think about the satisfaction of the people and even their safety. The distance to the travel could be also one of the factors while deciding this transportation mode. Certain traveling rules could be putting up certain restrictions on tonnage of the waste that is to be conveyed and some specific covering that is required while transporting that particular waste in order to ensure the people's satisfaction and safety. That means one has to think of the local law as well as these regulations. As we discussed on the last slide, this transportation is the costliest element as far as its association with collection is concerned. Hence, the availability of the funds is also one of the major factors to consider while selecting the transportation facility. As we know, transportation by road to the designated vehicles is convenient option. Now we will just focus our discussion on that activity only. As far as present Indian scenario is concerned, there is an ineffective as well as unscientific manual loading of the waste. Also, the collection and the transportation is quite irregular. It is quite probable that the fleet of the vehicles and even the associated accessories may not be utilized fully. The open trucks, as it is not covered properly, they may cause the littering of the waste, even though odor nuisance is there, even they may attract the flies, As such, they cause the noises. Not putting of the vehicles is also the common observation as far as Indian scenario is concerned. This waste management facility does not have a specific cell which would simply be attending the solid waste collection and transportation facility in order to have the effective solid waste management. Hence, we can consider some factors for the improvement. One must ensure that these containers as well as these dustbin sites will be cleared before they start overflowing, and hence the frequency of the transportation should be arranged accordingly. This transportation must be planned scientifically. It must be easily maintained either through the departmental resources or through certain private partnership. The system should appropriately match with the system adopted for the storage of the waste at waste storage depots. As far as manual loading is concerned, it should be totally discouraged and it should be phased out expeditiously. Loading by direct lifting of the containers through hydraulic system or non-hydraulic devices or direct loading of the waste into these particular transport vehicles are some of the factors which need attention as we wish to have this particular manual intervention to its minimum. Hence, we have to focus on the necessity of operational scheduling and vehicle routing. The collection processes are affected by poor collection schedules, improper wheel collection systems, insufficient infrastructure, as well as low number of vehicles for waste collection. Waste collection and transportation is an important aspect of this solid waste management, and it has direct impact on the operational costs. If we consider some private agency which is working on behalf of urban local body, and if such operational scheduling and collection is not properly focused, there would be increase in the operational cost and it would subsequently reduce the profit likely to be earned. Usually, the routes used by the drivers are decided on their own discretion, and this is not done with due cognizance to the operation cost reduction as well as even the environmental conservation. Hence, the drivers need to be trained as well scheduled for daily solid waste collection in the respective operational areas in order to have the waste collection economically facilitated. One should also must take into consideration that the systematic routing through the scientific means is a means for capturing the cost reduction as well as even conserving the environment as a whole. As we consider certain traffic layouts and the collection procedures that are opted, the present trends could be quite zigzag and vehicles could be working in certain shapes. In order to change the scenario, we can think of these particular broad suggestions in order to achieve the cost effectivity. Hence, there is a necessity to avoid the zigzag movement of the vehicles to the extent possible. As you compare these two blocks, you can easily understand how we can avoid that zigzag movements. During the daytime, there could be very heavy traffic. Hence, even working during the night could increase the productivity as far as the collection is concerned. One may also propose to utilize the vehicles in various shifts. As we discussed through the earlier slides, we have to attend the requirement of that particular area while selecting the type of the vehicle. Say, for example, if the stretch is small, if it is too congested, if the road width is not conducive, then selecting the bigger vehicle would not be beneficial proposal at all. Instead, one can go for the smaller vehicle. Hence, in addition to these particular factors, one may also think of the available workshop facilities in order to maintain that particular vehicles. I am intentionally repeating this particular point that whatever may be the case, one must ensure the cost reduction as well as environmental conservation while adopting any measure as far as waste collection and transportation is concerned. While planning the routes, one can have the various approaches. So these approaches could be based on one's experience and intuition. It could be following some small formulations of simple rules. However, this one's experience and intuition based plannings and its efficiency depends solely on the expertise of that particular designer. This approach is called as heuristic approach. Today we have got lot many modern amenities. We can go for programming. We can go for some GIS, GPS enable techniques. We can go for some smart solutions. And hence, we can think of advanced mathematical simulations while planning these particular routes. As one adopts this kind of approach, one can go for number of reiterations very easily. But the limitation is this approach could be applicable for uniform and continuous sources. This particular approach is called as deterministic approach. One cannot go for blind solutions by simply using the deterministic approach. As well, even for the larger areas, selecting and going for this particular heuristic approach may not prove to be the beneficial solution. Hence, if both the options are clubbed together, the planning of the roads could be quite easy, convenient, as well as economical. Hence, one can go for very simple guidelines. Firstly, we don't wish to have such kind of zigzag. We wish to have the collection route as continuous without overlap. There would be number of such locations which needs individual trips in order to serve that particular area. Hence, on the job time for all such routes should be more or less equal. On some difficult terrains, as well as in congested areas, the collection of this particular waste should always be avoided. As far as Indian circumstances are concerned, we travel on the left. So if the dead ends are on the left side, vehicle can enter within, it can serve the both sides of that particular road, can come back and it can resume its lane if these particular dead ends are kept on the left side. If they are on the right, the vehicle has to take the U-turn, and accordingly here unnecessary travel would be increased. We wish to have the consistent collection patterns. As well, we must avoid the collection on rising grades. This laying out is 4-step process. Whatever may be the approach you could be using, one is expected to go through these 4 steps. So the first step is to refer or prepare the location maps. So we'll have the various pickup locations, the number of containers to be served. We can broadly think of the guidelines available for the collection frequency as well as the estimated quantities. By studying this particular factor, we can create the data summaries. So we can estimate how much waste is required to be collected for each day for that particular location. We can have some trial and errors in order to lay down the preliminary collection routes from different stations. The way you see here, one could have started from any of these particular stations in order to initiate the process. Here we have to have the route which will be connecting all such pickup locations, and we wish to have this particular last pickup location near to the next facility that we wish to go. Also, the way we mentioned, the T net, the time that is spent on each of these particular collection routes should be same. Hence, we have determined the haul distance for each routes. We have to determine the labor requirement per day. We have to check against the available working times per day, and after developing the balanced routes, we can prepare the master map. So this master map would be the reference for all the drivers in order to have the waste collected through designated roads, times, days, and the region only. So just you can refer to this particular sketch. This is the neat arrangement of the various blocks. As far as Indian circumstances are concerned, this system may not be always possible, but in order to understand this particular layout design, here we will refer to this particular data. So by referring to the data, as a first step, we have determined the total number of the residents to be served as 332. The computations are self-sufficient to understand. We can determine the compacted volume of that municipal solid waste by knowing what is the generation rate, number of days per week, the density achieved, the number of people per residence, and the number of residents. So here the compacted volume works out to be 40 cubic meter per week. If we wish to have that region served through two number of trips by making use of, say, vehicle which has capacity of 20 cubic meter, that means here we have to have such two trips. So per trip the residences would be served is 166, and now we wish to have the route design in such a manner that it will serve these 166 residences. While doing so, all the factors that we discussed while having such kind of layouts and all the guidelines that we discussed, one must take into account. As we discussed about some modern approaches, that is, one can go for GIS, GPS based techniques, as well as one can go for certain mathematical modeling. Here, the comparative strengths and weaknesses as listed down can be just taken into account. For mathematical programming, different types of VRPs are solved using mathematical algorithms. So we are going for vehicle route plannings and their alternatives, abbreviated as VRP. We can also seek the maximize as well as the minimize objective functions. It can be used in order to improve the processes. As we thought of having number of iterations, we can ensure the operational efficiency. It can be used as decision supporting tools because simply mathematical programming won't be helpful. One's expertise, the experience should be also taken into account. As we apply these kind of the solutions, the solutions could be partial solution as far as real situations are concerned. We can take into account certain route layouts, its width, congestion factors, halt time constants. But in reality, there could be different street network constraints, and we may not be able to handle the routing fully based on this mathematical programming. We can also go for geographical information system based designs that permits the incorporation of these particular impedances and restrictions in the road network modeling. It spatially displays the outputs of optimization which can be easily understood even the drivers. It allows the incorporation of relief features into the street network modeling. It improves the waste collection efficiency, and it can also be used as decision support tools. We can think of two weaknesses. First, difficulty in incorporating certain environmental pollution considerations into the street network modeling. As well, this vehicle planning solver may not be ideal for calculating these particular route optimization for large cluster of points. However, these techniques are definitely good and one must use as decision support tools. So, thanks for your attention. We tried to discuss so many things as far as collection and transportation for micro as well as macro regions as a part of solid waste management system. As we move further, we'll discuss about the transfer station facility related factors. So by till then, I wish you very happy learning. Thank you.